Welcome into the Rock Talk studio, where today I'm looking at Rock and Roll Estates, the Good and the Bad, a documentary about a rock star that should be dead, which I guess you could say that is probably a pretty long list of candidates for that, and wrapping it up with talking about something that I've never talked about before on the show, and I'll probably never talk about it again. I'm your host, Big Rick. I'm here every week to find you what to explore, experience, and invest in next when it comes to rock and roll history and culture. I do the reading, I do the watching, and I gladly do all the digging to bring you nothing but the good stuff. Which rock and roll estate has it dialed in, and which one has some work to do? And the reason this one caught my eye is this year marks the 50th anniversary of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and the Petty estate is doing something pretty cool, and they do most of the time. Do I need a Heartbreakers salt and pepper shaker? That's a no. Though it is pretty cool. They took the heart with the guitar logo going through it, the famous Tom Petty and Heartbreakers logo, and they made a little heart with feet on it and split it in half, one for salt, one for pepper. Okay, do I need a Tom Petty ashtray? You see where I'm going with this. But for the 50th anniversary, they kind of stepped up their game, and I caught this the other day. I really liked it. They're releasing a exclusive run of posters, and they limited the run to 250, and they're all hand-numbered and hand-stamped with a 50th anniversary logo on it. And what I thought was really cool is they're releasing one per month for every month this year. And I like that this was something a little bit different, but also had some value to it and a little bit more than just kind of like a tchotchke item. And also, I thought it was a great way to celebrate the 50 years of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So if I had to look at it overall, the Petty estate, I would say they've got some really good stuff, especially over the last couple of years. The release of the Heartbreakers Beach Party, the cult classic doc that Cameron Crowe did in the 80s, the reissue of the Wildflowers LP, how it was originally supposed to be out as a 2-record set. That was really good with all the extra cuts. And they're going to release a special live LP from the Paradise Rock Club in Boston that was recorded in 78. That one they're doing exclusive for Record Store Day this year. So keep rocking, Tom Petty estate. You're doing a good job, not bad. Now the Prince estate, that's another story. I went to the Prince official website, and right now it's just a bunch of flashing images. Okay, I checked the Instagram, and now it's pretty dialed in. It took a little bit to find a shop and some things. Didn't see a salt and pepper shaker, but also didn't see much in the music and video department that hasn't been seen before. Prince died 8 years ago, and unfortunately, it's messy. A bunch of parties are trying to get control of the estate, and currently it's in legal battles. So with this one, we're going to have to wait, which is too bad. Prince was so prolific. You know there's a ton of great stuff in the archives in that famous vault. Prince said it himself. He's got a lot of stuff in there. So I'm looking forward to the day when that gets worked out and we get a bunch of cool Prince stuff. Now, I'm not going to segue from rock stars who have passed into a new documentary that I wanted to talk about a rock star who should be dead. That's not cool. Instead, let's get controversial and talk about something I've never talked about on the Rock Talk Studio podcast, and I hope I don't ever have to talk about it again. Politics. Oh man, I've got to take a little moment before I get into that. It's a good moment though, because it's about really cool stuff that I want to tell you about. I've been giving away a bunch of books, and I've got a bunch of books lined up that are really great titles, and I wanted to let you in on how you can get a chance to win these. I've just given away a cool Rush book about 2012, the 50-year celebration, and coming up, I'm going to be giving away a copy of last year's book that won the best rock and roll book of 2025, and that's Mike Campbell's Heartbreaker book. Really looking forward to that because it's such a great book. And then I'm also have a chance to give away a new Rolling Stone biography by Bob Spitz coming out. So these are coming up as giveaways, and here's how you get in on that. You go to the show notes. There's a little link for a subscription to my newsletter. It's totally free. It comes out once a month. It enters you into all the contests, and it also gives you all the news about what's going on in the rock and roll world, all the book buzz, the documentary news, all the things that I'm covering here on the show. and more. I can't cover everything here, so that kind of gives you the wrap up for the month and what to be on the lookout for. Cool stuff coming down the road. Join into the book giveaway, sign up for the newsletter, and I'll hook you up. All right, let's jump into this. This is a first, and it's why I'm looking at it. And it's political, which I'm not looking at. So whatever your political views are, let's just put that to the side right now and look at this from a rock and roll standpoint, because it's never been done before. And that's why I'm taking a look at it here. No artist, especially of this stature, has come out and said, this tour is going to be political and very topical about what's going on in this country. And that country is the United States, and that artist is Bruce Springsteen, who along with his E Street Band in tow has launched his Land of Hopes and Dreams tour. And for nothing else, you gotta give this guy credit for standing up for what he believes in, and even willing to lose some fans along the way as he does it. Now, there have been tours that are political in content. The Vote for Change tour, that one was in 2004. That tour also included Springsteen, but it had Pearl Jam, John Fogerty, Neil Young, Peter Frampton, My Morning Jacket, John Mellencamp, Jackson Browne, a handful of others participated in the Vote for Change tour. The one I remember most, though, was the 1988 Human Rights Now tour, the Amnesty International tour, because I remember I was lucky enough to see one of those shows. I was living in Los Angeles when the tour came through, and they were playing the massive LA Coliseum. That's like 100,000 people jammed in there. Again, featuring Springsteen, but it also had Sting, Peter Gabriel, Tracy Chapman, and Yossar Noddur on that bill. I remember Yossar Noddur did just this show-stopping vocal on Biko with Peter Gabriel. And this was peak Springsteen time. 1988 was, Born in the USA time. Sting was in solo mode and hanging out and playing with those great jazz cats. The beginning of Tracy Chapman's career. Always remember that show. Just some great memories of the Amnesty International show. And I want to mention the No Nuke show too. That was September in '79. Madison Square Garden by the Musicians United for Safe Energy. Jackson Browne, Graham Nash, Bonnie Raitt, and Springsteen again. That was again for a cause, but still nothing like a direct tour like Springsteen and the E Street Band are doing right now. And that is about how much politics I'm ever going to talk about on this show. So let's turn you on to a new documentary called Billy Idol Should Be Dead. There are a lot of rockers out there that could make that claim. Nikki Sixx, Please Step Forward, read the Motley Crue book, easily top 5 for wild rock and roll excess, such a crazy book. And even the biopic, Dirt, that came out in 2019, touches on Nikki's return from the dead. And I wanted to share, there's a sleeper rock and roll excess story book that came out a couple of years ago in the Should Be Dead category. And I want to suggest this to you. It's Matt Sorum's book. Matt Sorum, drummer for The Cult, Guns N' Roses, and the founding member of Velvet Revolver. His book, Double Talk and Jive, came out in 2022. I reviewed it in episode 7. Wow, way back in episode 7. And it's crazy partying in that one. And you get a good redemption story too, as Matt has gone on to thrive as a drummer and kind of clean himself up. And then, of course, you have our boy with some of the greatest rock and roll tales in the history of rock and roll, and that's Keith Richards. If you haven't read his memoir, Life, You Haven't Lived, that is a must read. But now you can throw Billy Idol's hat in the ring. New documentary, Billy Idol Should Be Dead, just came out. I watched it on Hulu, and Billy came close a few times to cashing it in, or as the doc points out, multiple times. The story is fairly career spanning. It traces the arc of his music career and gives you all the crazy stories of the singer's wild behavior from Billy Idol himself. The doc's main focus, and what I feel is a strong point, is the interviews with Billy Idol. Billy's classic. He's funny. He's charming to a fault in this documentary. And even when he's describing these deep, really ugly, dark moments, he's funny and he's charming as he reflects on his most painful moments in his life. And as he points out in the doc, he's being Billy Idol. And you get to see him be William Broad, his real name, especially when he's around his parents. there's a handful of segments that really work well with making this more than just a crazy rock and roll party story. So you get to see Billy as a character and then the real Billy. There is one thing I wanted to address about this doc, and one thing that I feel that it's guilty of, and a question I've been asking lately, like what is going on with all this use of animation in rock docs lately? The last couple of docs I've watched feature animation to tell stories of the past or stories they don't have footage with. And it's starting to become kind of a tiresome trend to me. If you don't have film of a moment, which of course you don't have film of every moment of someone's career, then a voiceover and show a picture or of the club or where they were hanging out, whatever it takes. But this animation thing, I think they need to pull back on it a little bit right now because it's starting to become in almost every documentary I've seen so far. It was in the Red Hot Chili Peppers doc recently. It was in the Paul McCartney doc. Let's pull back on this and just get back to the basics. I think it's a little bit much. But overall, I thought the Idol doc was okay. It dragged a little bit. I wasn't blown away by it. But Billy Idol on screen, talking through his life, is definitely worth the 2 hours it runs. All right, let's tear it down, pack it up, and head on down the road. I'll catch you next time in the Rock Talk studio for more artifacts, myths, stories, and moments that define and celebrate the art form known as rock and roll.